kasih yang sebesar-besarnya kepada semua pihak yang telah berkorban berjuang untuk terlaksananya kegiatan seperti pada hari ini. Dan pada kesempatan ini pula saya ingin memberikan sedikit terkait dengan tema kegiatan konferensi pada hari ini yang terkait dengan soal green economy atau ekonomi hijau yang kita programkan di Indonesia dan juga ini menjadi program internasional. Bapak Ibu sekalian, kalau kita menelaah ajaran-ajaran agama, terutama yang terdapat di dalam Al-Quran dan hadis Rasulullah SAW, maka green economy itu adalah bagian dari syariat Islam. Kita tahu green economy itu adalah pertumbuhan bersama dan lagi berapa anak kami minta kepada Allah bahwa la'al hijab dan kami ciptakan keseimbangan, maka alam diciptakan dengan penuh keseimbangan. Allah tahu diri janganlah manusia merusak keseimbangan. Orang timur harus ambil istilah. Bahkan perintahnya adalah tegakkanlah keadilan dan tegakkanlah kebenaran. Maka setiap langkah dan aktivitas manusia yang tidak dan maka saudara dia memperoleh manfaat dari kegiatan-kegiatan positifnya, tetapi manusia juga akan menerima dampak negatif dari kegiatan-kegiatan negatif. Yang ketiga dalam ayat di surah Al-A'raf terkait dengan kemungkinan manusia serakah di dalam kehidupannya. Allah mengingatkan waqulu washrabu wa la tusrifu innahu la yuhibbul musrifin. Silahkan makan, silahkan minum, tetapi jangan melampaui batas. Nah, itu makan dan minum dalam pengertian konvensional, tapi makan dan minumnya yang ada urusan keinginan awal nafsu kita untuk menguasai alam semesta. Maka Allah mengingatkan wala tusrifu, jangan melampaui batas-batas, yakni batas keseimbangan alam jiwa, akal, mata, keterburukan, kalau alam oleh karena itu dari perspektif ini, baik perspektif makna khalifah dalam memahamkan etik, makna keseimbangan, kemudian makna tidak dengan batas, serta konsep-konsep makna syariat, maka jelaslah konsep atau desain atau program terkait green economy dari Allah. Maka bagi umat beragama khusus yang beragama Islam dengan memahami, mengamalkan dan mengimplementasikan terkait green economy adalah bagian integral dari keberagaman kita. Maka oleh karena itu tepatlah saya kira apa yang kita laksanakan pada hari ini terkait tahun bulan green economy, green Antasari dan marilah kita buka acara ini. Terus sama-sama membaca Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Akhirul kalam. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you for listening and further inspiring speech and for officially opening the conference. Ladies and gentlemen, receive blessings for all of you here. We will now have a prayer, which will be led by Mr. Muhammad Shafi Al-Adil.
Islamic economic agencies, we ask you to do this conference with success, wisdom, and goodwill. Then, on participants, some ideas, sense of intention, mentioned that the French scholars and their community were also these people of how organizing the contributors meant the control of these content source of people, enlightenment, and ability to observe the world. Remember that the way we have mentioned also the knowledge of the knowledge and the world. Also the knowledge of the
You would like to take a moment for a virtual
Loadingnya, bentar. Ini belum masuk. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Please be upon you all who have gathered here today in our second annual ACIEB conference from the Faculty of Islamic Economics and Business, Islamic State University of Antasari, Bangladesh. We have the theme for today: reimagining development, innovation, and resilience in the green economy era. His Holiness Dean of Islamic Economics and Business, our very own Professor Dr. Sultani M. Agye, Vice Dean Dr. Zaki Mubarak, MSc, Dr. Mohammed SIK, and also Vice Dean Dr. Hatia Zulfamatya, MIK. The Honorable Professors, Head of Departments, Lecturers of the Faculty of Islamic and Business, and last but not least, our distinguished guests of honor for today, Professor Dr. Abdul Kadir M. Ayo, Dr. Ridwan Karim, and last but not least, Dr. Muhammad Zaki bin Haji Zaini. Welcome to Banjarmasin, South Borneo, Indonesia. Respectable professors, lecturers, staffs, and fellow students who are present offline here in Rectorate Building and online on YouTube platforms, we are delighted to welcome you to the second Antasari Conference on Islamic Economics and Business, today on Tuesday, 28th October 2025. Today's conference presents the importance of understanding green economy era for future leaders and decision makers in the business and the economy. Hence, today's sessions aim to give a chance for academic and professionals to gain and share information on ways to reimagine development using both innovation and resilience on impact. Hosted here in Banjarmasin, this annual conference is organized by the Faculty of Islamic Business School, Islamic State of Antasari University. My name is Novita and I will be your host for today. Before we begin, to inform you that among us here we have very distinguished guests from 4 different countries in the world. We introduce them to you here among us, starting with Dr. Ridwan Karim from Monash University, Malaysia. Welcome, Doctor. Dr. Ridwan Karim is a senior lecturer and deputy director of the Center for Commercial Law and Regulatory Studies, or CLARS, in Monash University, Malaysia. Dr. Ridwan holds a Doctor of Philosophy, PhD, from the University of Malaya, Malaysia. He has taught and researched in the fields of business and cyber law. Dr. Ridwan Karim today will be delivering the material on policies and legal strategies for an equitable green economy connecting energy justice principles. Please welcome Dr. Ridwan Karim.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope I'm audible, right? All of you can hear me? Yes. If anyone can give a text or a signal that I'm audible, then I can proceed.
I'm sorry, what was that, Doctor?
Yes. So you all can hear me, right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Let me share my screen. Okay, I hope you guys can see my screen as well. So let me begin. Assalamu alaikum once again, distinguished guests, respected colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, a good morning to all of you. It is a pleasure and honor to join this gathering at the Antasari Conference on Islamic Economics and Business. Today, I will talk about the policies and legal strategies for an equitable green economy. And we will try to connect it with the energy justice principle to understand how to equip the policies and the strategies for the future green economy. Now, when we talk about the future of our economics in the context of climate change, there's often an assumption that the green economy is good. Actually, I can hear my echo. Okay. Can UI and NTV silent their mic so that I don't hear the echo? Is that okay? Okay. Now I guess it's better. Okay, so when we talk about the future of our economics in the context of climate change, There's often an assumption that the green economy is good, but as long as we reduce emissions, invest in renewable energy, and promote green technologies, we are automatically doing justice. That's the concept that we have. But here's the thing: decarbonization is not the same as justice. Look into this picture. You can see from the left what is the reality. One gets more which is needed, while the other get less than needed. That is the system of today's world. If you can look into my slides and look into the picture, the reality holds that in the real world, when we talk about transitioning to the green economy, the reality is not everyone is receiving same opportunities, same resources, and same future prospect of this transition to green economy. Now, we talk about equality in the second picture, how to divide these resources, these opportunities equally. But if we divide this, solve the problem, because the assumption is that everyone benefits from the same supports, which is not. You see, the person who is not so tall cannot even look into the game that is happening beyond his borders because he doesn't have the height to look at it. So you can't transition into green economy providing equal opportunities to everyone. And that is where this next two pictures come into being. One is equity, another one is justice. Everyone gets the support they need. That is the motto of equity. And the justice motto is we need to find the basic cause of inequity and then we need to address them. So the systematic barrier is removed. So look into this picture and think about the transition to green economy. How we can transition to green economy by keeping the mind equity and justice. That is the thing that I want to talk to you about transitioning to the green economy and its impact on the society. I will give examples from the Indonesian green transition policies, and I will definitely try to understand how equity and justice can play a role in Indonesia's green economic transition. So my talk today focuses on critical questions. The first one is how to ensure that transition to a green economy is equitable, not extractive. And the second question that I want to ask, how do we design policies and legal frameworks that embed that fairness, participation, and dignity at the center of this green economic transition? And to address this, I will do three things. First, I will unpack what an equitable green economy actually means. Second, I will show how energy justice principles, whether it's distributional, procedural, and recognition justice, can be used to evaluate and guide the transition. And finally, I will discuss Indonesia's current experience in comparative perspective and offer a few policy and legal pathways by which it can align justice and sustainability. What we mean by a kind of equitable green economy, with the idea of the green economy. The United Nations define it as an economy that results in improved human well-being and social equity, while significantly reducing environmental risk and ecological scarcities. That sounds inspiring, but it's also vague. What exactly counts as improved well-being or social inequity? That's the question. So when we ask the question that what is actually a green economy? What is actually a well-being and whose well-being are we improving? whose equity are we protecting? So when we see the real life scenario, in many cases, so-called green transitions reproduce older inequalities in new forms. We see this in the lithium and nickel supply chains, which is very essential for electric vehicles. Much of the global demand of these minerals, which is lithium and nickel, falls on countries like Indonesia. Sulawesi, for example, has become a hub for nickel extraction. While these projects are framed as part of the global decarbonization, but we often don't look into the local impacts that it creates. The local impacts are very complex. We can see environmental degradation in Sulawesi because of this nickel extraction. We can see loss of coastal livelihoods. We can see limited benefit sharing with the indigenous and rural communities of Sulawesi. So the paradox is clear. The global green economy depends heavily on extractive practices in the global south. And this is not just an environmental issue, it is a justice issue. An equitable green economy, therefore, is one that doesn't only measure carbon, but also measure fairness. Who gains from the green economy transition? Who loses? Who decides? These are the valid questions that we need to ask. If we think that we will just measure green economic transition with carbon measurement, it's a wrong way to do that. We have to look into the equity and justice so that we can eradicate all the barriers from this green economy transition. Now, energy justice, how energy justice can play a role. So energy justice broadly have three key principles. The first one is distributional justice. And this principle is concerned with how benefits and burdens are distributed. For instance, who has access to affordable clean energy and who bears the pollution, displacement, or cost of transition? These are the valid questions that distributional justice asks. It's asked for equitable distribution of resources and opportunities and benefits. Now, the second principle of energy justice is procedural justice. It focused on the fairness of decision making. Are affected communities genuinely participating in policy formulation, or are they passive recipients of state or corporate decisions? So these are the questions that procedural justice asks. Procedural justice asks whether the local government has a part to play, has a part to say in state government, state policy making or not in case of green economy transition. The third one is recognition justice, which asks about respecting the identities, the histories, the rights of different groups, the rights of indigenous or rural communities. And it provides benefits for the marginalized and indigenous communities who are often rendered invisible in mainstream policy process. So when we bring these principles together, the principles of energy justice, it does two things. It acts as a diagnostic tool. It diagnoses where the problem lies. When we go to doctor, we diagnose ourselves, right? If you have a disease, you go to doctor. The first thing the doctor will ask, let's do a diagnostic test. So energy justice is that diagnostic test for our green economy. It reveals inequalities that technical or economic models might overlook, and it acts as a perspective framework, helping policymakers craft more inclusive laws and governance system. Now, where does Indonesia stand when we look into Indonesia's global green economic transition through the eyes of energy justice? Definitely Indonesia, a country that captures the contradiction and possibilities of the green economy in one frame, is the world's sixth largest emitter of greenhouse gases. So one of the greatest polluter in the world is Indonesia. and primarily due to its energy production and land use change. But it is also the largest economy in Southeast Asia, with immense potential in renewables, geothermal, hydro, solar, and combined all of these that could theoretically power the entire nation several times over. So this is the dual identity of Indonesia. It is both a major emitter and a renewable powerhouse, which makes Indonesia a test case of how developing countries can balance growth, equity, and sustainability. So Indonesia can be an example for the whole world if they can do this green economy transition correct. In 2022, Indonesia entered a landmark deal known as Just Energy Transition Partnership, JETP, a $20 billion agreement with the United States, Japan, and European partners aimed at accelerating the phase out of coal and scaling up renewable energy. Now, on the paper, this is a historic move, no doubt about that. The Just Energy Transition Partnership, or JETP, promise not just climate action, but also it brings local scholars and civil society organizations to create actual implementation. Now, I will a little bit explain where the problem lies. Although Indonesia entered into Just Energy Transition Partnership, they have so far overlooked some of the justice concerns, and that is where the main problem arises. Now, Indonesia's energy system is deeply intertwined with coal, and that is the problem. Around 60% of the country's electricity comes from coal-fired power plants, and the sector employs tens of thousands of workers and sustains local economic places like East Kalimantan, South Sumatra, and South Kalimantan. So when international partners and policymakers in Jakarta talk about a coal phase out, no need for coal, the assumption is often that economic alternatives will emerge quickly. But in practice, it doesn't happen so. For many communities, this transition actually means job losses. So if you you phase out coal power plants, it will directly, and the first instances, it will definitely create job losses. It will decline local revenues, and it will create an economic uncertainty. And that is why distributional justice issue comes into being. So you see, the benefits of renewable investment is, bringing foreign capital, new technology, new jobs, which are very good, which are concentrated in mainly urban and industrial center, not in the rural center. So if green transition happen, it's very unlikely that Kalimantan will have a good effect on it, because the main job resource in the East and South Kalimantan depends on coal power plants. But if green transition happen, it can happen maybe in the cities, urban areas, like in Jakarta, in Surabaya, or in Bali. It might not have an impact on the Borneo Island, on the Kalimantan people. So you see, the benefit that it's bringing, it's not equitable. It's not for all Indonesian. It's for a certain people in Indonesia. And these people might live in urban societies. If you look into EV industry, electric vehicle, whenever I visit Indonesia, I see Jakarta has a lot of electronic vehicles now. But if you move out from Jakarta, you go any other city, you can't see these electronic vehicles anymore. So this means that all the developments, all the transition to green economy is actually happening in only one or two major urban areas. And that's the problem. That's the issue of justice. That means justice is not happening everywhere. So this is where distributional justice issue comes into being. But there is also a procedural justice dimension. Many of these decisions on policy making are made without meaningful consultations. Local governments are often not informed of these transition plans. They're not kept in the same table when the policy is made. Small holders, cooperatives, and unions rarely have a seat at the negotiation table. And that is what the problem lies. And that is what happened with the JETPs as well. We call about just transition, but the process is more technocratic rather than democratic. So a genuinely just transition would start from the communities, not just from ministries. And that is what energy justice talks about. That is what energy justice promotes. Now, what is the role of law and institutional architecture in it? So Indonesia already has some important legal foundation, like law number 32 of 2009 on environmental protection and management establishes sustainability, fairness, right to good environment. There are national energy policy by the government, which sets target for renewables to reach at least 23% of the energy mix by 2025. Yet, these laws are often fragmented, reactive, and poorly coordinated with local governments. For example, environmental impact assessment, AMDAL, are legally required, but social impact assessment, which consider gender, livelihood, or cultural impact, are often weak or absent. So Indonesia look the loss of green economic transition from the measurement of carbon, not the measurement of human lives, not the measurement of cultural identities or cultural impact of this transition. But if we look into South Africa, for example, South Africa's climate change bill, it explicitly mandates that creation of a just transition framework should happen with public consultation and community representation. So, in that regard, Indonesia should move to the direction where it established a National Energy Justice Council, which can be an independent, multi stakeholder body with authority to review transition policies for fairness, and it also embed the right of participation by mandating community benefits, agreements that can happen into renewable projects, that can have local participation to share the projects, and that will have limited external influence from the state government or federal government. So these all are very important. And in terms of saving the indigenous or local rural communities, the archipelago, the Indonesia, should have indigenous and customer communities, which we know as Masyarakat Adat, have lived in harmony in forests, rivers, and lands for generations. So we can't have a colonial or post-colonial law that takes their identity, their cultural heritage, their land from themselves. So it's very important when these renewable energy transitions are happening, we cater them. We don't build the renewable projects like hydro, geothermal plants, and even biofuel plantations at the cost of their land, at the cost of their culture, at the cost of their livelihood. This is where the 2020 Omnibus Law on Job Creation was criticized for further weakening environmental safeguard and streamlining land acquisition for investment. So Indonesia has to go out from that practice. It should strengthen the legal recognitions of Masyarakat Adat, indigenous community, through the amendments in the agrarian law. It should require free, prior, and informed consent, which we know as FPIC, for any energy project on customary land, aligning with national and international law. It should also integrate indigenous ecological knowledge into the local energy plan. This is how a justice issue can be addressed when we're talking about the transitions to economic justice. I will skip this slide and I will go to the Islamic ideologies, because now as we are gathered in Islamic Economic Forum, let's connect some of the energy justice principle with the Islamic and ethical roots. In Islam, justice, which is adl, is not a policy option, by the way. It is the foundation of social order. The Quran says, indeed, Allah commands justice, excellence, and generosity to relatives and forbids immorality and oppression in Surah An-Nahl 16/19. And again, it says in Surah Al-Araf, do not cause corruption on the earth after it has been set in order. So these verses speak directly to our current ecological moment. The excessive extraction of nature, the concentration of wealth, and the neglect of the poor are all forms of fasad fil ard, which is corruption on earth. From an Islamic economic perspective, the green economy should not merely be a strategy for growth under new conditions. It should be a manifestation of tawazun, which is a balance, and amana, which is a trust. Humans are trustees. We are khalifas of the earth, the owners of the earth. So therefore, we should have policies for an equitable green economy that should embody the Maqasid al-Sharia, the higher objectives of preserving life, intellect, wealth, and the environment. So Islamic finance instruments like Green Sukuk is already a potential. It reflects a great potential for Indonesia as well. And Indonesia issued the world's first sovereign Green Sukuk in 2018 to fund sustainable projects. But the justice dimension should go further, using Islamic social finance tools like Zakat or Wakaf for renewable access in low economic communities, or structuring Mudaraba partnership for community-owned solar ventures can be a way out. So Indonesia and the Islamic legal scholars should look into this perspective, should look into Zakat, how to diversify the Zakat investments, how to diversify and structure Mudaraba partnership for renewable energy projects. That's the future that we are looking into. I will not talk about a lot on the governance because I guess my time is limited, but I'll just say that when we talk about equitable transition, the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, Bapenas, and all the local governments have overlapping mandates. That's the finding of our research. And this is where all these government bodies or policymakers should sit together to see how to improve the situation. It should see how to establish measurable indicators of justice. And justice means how we can increase the participations of the marginalized communities in the renewable energy transition process or the green economy transition process. In Germany, they have done that. They have regional transition package, which are negotiated by the federal and state level, and it ensured that it is co-designed with the local authorities, communities, and indigenous or rural groups. In South Korea as well, they have renewable energy cooperatives, which is supported by the national legislation. So Indonesia could follow a similar or links to have local innovation to national strategies and national targets. Now, the last two slides, but just to give how we can, as an academic or as a researcher, how we can play a more advanced role in doing justice in green economic transition. We as scholars need to have deeper empirical work, mainly on Indonesia, on how justice looks like in practice. How is green economy is transitioning? For example, look into the distributional mapping. Who gets electricity from renewables? Who gets jobs? Who shoulders displacements? Who remains understudied in Indonesia? That's the thing we as a scholar should look into. From the university perspective, we should be a vocal tool for the communities that are not getting benefits from green economy transition. So I urge my colleagues here to look into the aspect, different aspect, not the carbon measurement aspect, but look into the social and cultural aspect that this green economy is going to bring. I'll just finish with concluding remarks. So let me begin to close with this thought. The global, so the global transition to a green economy is inevitable. It will happen, definitely. But the question is not whether it will happen or not. But the question is whether it will happen fairly or not. So if we can't build justice, we can't build equity in its core foundation at this moment, at the moment when it's in the door of transitioning, then we will see a same unequal future that our past. So if this green economy transition cannot help the poor of the society, cannot the question we need to see. And we need to embed justice through law, through participation, and through recognition. And Indonesia has every reason to lead future transition. Its Islamic ethical foundation, its diversity of communities, its policy experimentation like sukuk or community-based renewables give Indonesia a unique platform. I know Indonesia has a lot of opportunities, and I believe that the future global transition in Indonesia will happen on the basis of justice and equity, not on the basis of, technocratic developments which can benefit only few people in the society. So with that hope, I conclude this, and I hope you will have, if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much.
Economy. Bagaimana beliau sampaikan, energy justice frameworknya sebagai diagnostik dan prescriptive tool, dan menggunakan 3 prinsip, yaitu distributional justice, keadilan distribusi, keadilan nasional, dan keadilan reproduksi. Thank you so much again, Dr. Khan, for the insight, especially on statistics on Indonesia as not only potential powerhouse for renewable energy, but also alleged emitter of carbon. Thank you. Now we have come to discussion, questions and answers. I'd like to make 2 questions first from the audience. If you would like to ask, you may please raise your hand. Thank you. We have 2 at the back. Please, you can discuss with Dr. Ridwan Kamil. Mr. Safi.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Assalamualaikum, Dr. Ridwan. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm doing good. How are you, brother?
Okay. I have listened about your presentation and the great presentation. There is the question that I want to ask you about your presentation that I have see the slide. You mentioned about the green economy is not automatically about the justice. Okay, so the main point is the green economy does not automatically mean the just economy. Like the nickel mining, the case in Sulawesi and also Malaysia. nickel in some province in Indonesia, I think. So my question is, what is the simplest way to ensure that the green project, like nickel mines or solar farms, like that, can truly benefit for the local community? Can you?
Yes. So,
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken, the question is, what is the practical way out to ensure that the green projects help the local communities, right?
Especially for the local communities.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Waalaikumsalam. It's a very good question and a very important question to ask. Three things we have to look. The first thing is that green project is creating jobs for the local communities, or is it destroying jobs for the local communities? That is the first thing. And how to look into these jobs. For example, if you create a hydro dam now, or extraction, nickel extraction, and we have seen it creates some job, but it also hampers the livelihood of the local communities. For example, the fishermen in South Sulawesi, they can't do the fishing because of the fact that the water is polluted through extraction. So when we bring an green economy project or green energy project, the first thing we have to look how many jobs it is creating, jobs it is killing. So when we talk about how many jobs it is destroying, we have to look into also the local community jobs, the rural. This is the first thing that we have to see, whether it is beneficial for the local communities by creating jobs or it is detrimental. The second thing that we have to look into this is whether it has any impact on local development. What I mean by local development, for example, in Bangladesh, we have seen, because of a nuclear power plant, the government has established schools, colleges, a market, benefiting local communities for our nuclear power plant. So the local people will get the job in the policy. The local people will get the electricity for that power from that power plant first. That is the policy. So when we do this green economy transition, we have to cater local community first. So if you're doing, for example, hydropower plant in Kalimantan, we have to make sure that Kalimantan people are the first who is receiving the electricity from that power plant. It doesn't transition to Java. It doesn't transition to any other island. But the first people who get the electricity is the island where the hydropower plant is active. The second thing, that whether it is bringing jobs, and with the jobs, it's not only jobs, the schools, the colleges, the knowledge relating to hydro energy is bringing or not. But, the local community is the one who work in that power plant, who produce electricity for themselves, and if there is any excess, then they can sell it to the federal government. That is the process, second process. The first process is whether to look into that, whether it is creating jobs or killing jobs. Second, whether it is really benefiting the local communities or not, through of schools, colleges, bringing, into the economy and diversifying the economy. And the third thing, whether it is actually green or not. Sometimes we think a renewable energy project is a green project. Not necessarily. It can be not green as. For example, if we talk about hydro, we talk about other power. For example, we talk about solar. To establish a huge solar plant, to deforest the place, you have to strengthen the place. You have to cut all the trees and create the space for those solar panels. So now, if we talk about clean economy, what we mean? We mean an economy that will not destroy my forest, that will not be a reason for my carbonization. So if you create a solar panel project by destroying a forest, it's not clean anymore. So these three questions that need to ask: first, whether it's creating jobs or not; second, whether it's benefiting local community or not; and the third, whether it is actually clean or not. Sometimes these clean energy projects are so-called clean, but it's not actually clean. As I given the example of solar power plant, it may create a deforestation to establish the power plant. So if that happens, then it's not clean anymore. So we need to ask different questions, mainly these three different questions, to see whether the local community gets the benefits with the green economic transition or not. Thank you so much for asking this question. I hope it answered.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ridwan. The next question, please.
Okay. You say that the energy justice is inclusive for distribution, for social and recognition justice. That's my question. How can this justice principle be transit from the theoretical ideas like your station into the enforceable legal norms in our country like Indonesia, where the government, you know, like our government is fragmented. No. And the second, Indonesia is not measure a greenhouse estimator and social renewable energy leader, and yet with 600% power still progress. My question is, what policy mix could be balanced global decarbonization goals with local socio-economic realities in coal dependence? It's like, you know, that we are in South Kalimantan, we have a rich of coal mining and other. So I think it's important to ask this question. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So if I'm not mistaken, the first question is how this theoretical justice principle can be practically implemented. This is the first question. And the second question, as Indonesia is dependent all on coal power plant, how to transform from coal to green, right? Is this the question without harming the economy? The second question? I hope this is the second question, right? Sorry, I can't hear. So the mic is mute on the other side. Yeah. So can I ask the section clarification?
Dr. Ridwan, would you like to repeat the second question, or would you like to ask?
Yeah, I would like to clarify the second question, if it's okay.
Can you please repeat the second question for Dr.
Okay, the question is, policy makes it could balance global decarbonization goals with local socio-economic realities in coal-dependent regions. The relation or like in our actually in our region, South Kalimantan.
And so, is that question is how Indonesia can transition from carbon to green economy? Is it the question?
Yeah, like this.
Okay. I'll try to answer. Let's see how good I can answer. The first thing, the very good question, that the justice principle that I show, which is recognition justice, distribution justice, and procedural justice, is it theoretical based, right? But yes, it is theoretical, but how to connect it with the practical? So this is where law comes into being, law and policy. So to connect the first one, distributional justice, the government should have law to measure whether the policy or the transition, the energy transition or green economy transition that we're talking about is benefiting the local community or not, is benefiting equally or not. So government should have law help to aid economic development rural communities through green economic projects. And this is where Islamic finance can also come into being through book, through zakat, and through other policy making, mudaraba structure, and so on and so forth. So the transition, so the theory to practical transition can happen to Islamic different mechanisms. For example, one of them is procedural justice. So free and informed consent. It's a practice of law. So if, for example, Indonesian government wants to build a hydro project in Kalimantan, it has to take first approval from the local communities, from the local government, from the local community through referendum. This is called prior and informed consent. So they first need to inform the local communities the benefits and the challenges of this project. And then if the community and the local government accept, then they can build the project. So that is the legal structure that can be utilized. So this justice principle is a theoretical principle. I have no doubt on that. But we can definitely adapt it in practice through law, through financing, and definitely through studies, future studies as well, how to really, connect these practically, these principles. The second questions, Indonesia being a coal-based electricity producer, how can it transition to green economy? So the transition shouldn't happen overnight. That is the simple idea. Indonesia needs economic certainty. Indonesia is going to be a powerhouse, is in the rise. Suddenly, if you change everything from zero coal to 100% renewable, it will stop its economy. It will stop its growth. So while Indonesia have to have the target that yes, we want this transition to happen, but it cannot happen immediately because a lot of jobs are connected with it. A lot of economic opportunities are connected with it. So the transition should happen slowly and carefully. And the people who will lose out of job because of this transition, the people who will get affected because of this transition should have opportunities outside of this coal power plant economy. And the government should ensure that. So there should be a transition mechanism. There should be a planning. There should be a year after year work. It should be 5 to 10 years. So Indonesia can look into next 2040 to reduce the coal power plant base production. It will happen. It should not happen at the cost of economic inflation. So if government suddenly takes a U-turn and take renewable energy projects seriously and set that into renewable energy, it may impact your life, other Indonesians' life as well, because the price of everything will be higher because it all connected with electricity. So while definitely Indonesia is a big coal producer, it still has to be very sincere, very calculative in taking decisions to this transition. It can't be just, okay, we decide to transition and we transit. It has to have a plan, year after year plan for next 15 years for this transition. I hope it answers your question. Any more questions?
for you for Antasari. Yes, thank you. I think that's all from our session. And some takeaways from Dr. Clarifiers IEP must ensure it is beneficial, it is clean, and he suggested justice principles and mechanisms for using law and policies, using measure-informed law, financing, and future research. While on the rise, Indonesia cannot change overnight, but will happen slowly but surely. Thank you so much. We are all here encouraged by Dr. Ridwan Farid to think about how we can all apply this idea into our own line of work. Thank you so much, Dr. Ridwan
Thank
Farid.
you so much. It is my pleasure and honor to join the conference. Thank you.
So much. Please give a round of applause for Dr. Farid. Next, without further ado, still on our next agenda for today, I would like to invite our session guest. Our next respected invited speaker for today is Professor Dr. Abdul Kadir from Mindanao State University in the Philippines. Welcome to Banjarmasin, Indonesia, Prof. Abdul Kadir. Thank you for joining us again this year on second ACIEB conference. Professor Dr. Abdul Kadir is the Executive Vice President of Mindanao State University in the Philippines, following his two-term tenure as Dean of the King Faisal Center for Arabic and Asian Studies since 2018. He completed his doctoral degree in philosophy and education management, Philippines, and was appointed senior engineer in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, also a member of the Office of the Jury Consultant Supreme Court of the Philippines. He ran the Distinguished Service and Special Sharia Bar Examiner in 2022 for Islamic Law on Inheritance and in 2025 for Islamic Jurisprudence. At 64, Dr. Ayu continues to embody his ideals of scholarship, leadership, and service. His enduring commitment to Islamic education, legal research, and community development reflects a lifelong devotion to the intellectual and moral upliftment of the Bangsamoro. He will be delivering for us today sustainable development in Bangsamoro Islamic values and green innovation. We would like to invite the online podium. Please give a warm welcome to Professor Dr. Abdul Kadir from the Philippines. Time is yours, Professor.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Is it loud and clear? Is it loud and clear?
Loud and clear, yes.
Yeah, okay. Here.
Yes, we can hear you, Prof. We can hear you.
Yeah, what about my PowerPoint sharing? Have you seen my share?
We see the slides, not in the presentation view, but we see the slides.
Only the slides you see on the screen.
We see the presenter view. We see the slide and the text. The next slide. first page only. Yes.
Okay, is this clear?
Yes, we hear you loud and clear. Pass it on.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A pleasant day to everyone. It's an honor to share insights on how Islamic values, education, and innovation can work together to achieve sustainable development in the Bangsamoro. This presentation links faith with science and culture with progress, showing that our Islamic identity is not a barrier for a foundation for sustainable growth. The Philippines consists of three main island groups. We have the Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. In the southern part of Mindanao lies the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, BARM, known for its Islamic heritage and cultural diversity. As of July 9, 2024, BARM has a population of almost 6 million, representing about 5% of the total Philippine population and approximately 21% of the Mindanao population. So you can imagine how small the Muslim in the Philippines. The Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao evolved through centuries of struggle for self-determination. Its roots trace back to the pre-colonial sultanates of Sulu and Maguindanao, which established early Islamic governance and independence. After Philippine independence, the Moro people experienced marginalization and conflict, leading to the rise of the Moro National Liberation Front in peace efforts produced the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao in 1989, but it was later deemed ineffective. The Moroist Liberation Front continued the quest for genuine autonomy, resulting in a framework agreement on 2012 and comprehensive agreement on the Bangsamoro 2014. This paved the way for the Bangsamoro Organic Law of the Republic Act 11054, and it was enacted in 2018 and ratified in 2019, which formally established the BARM government. And it was officially inaugurated in March 29, 2019, under the Chief Minister of Al-Hajj Murad Ibrahim. BARM introduced a parliamentary system, greater fiscal autonomy, and the recognition of Sharia, Moro customs, and indigenous rights, marking a historic step toward lasting peace and self-governance in Mindanao. The Muslim Code, or the Presidential Decree number 1083, enacted in 1977, it is a special law that governs personal and family relations among Muslims in the Philippines, including marriage, divorce, succession, and Islamic inheritance. Its existence reflects the country's unique tri-legal system, which harmonizes civil law, common law, and Islamic law within the national legal framework. However, the Muslim Code is limited to matters of personal status and family relation. It does not cover Islamic law or hudud provisions. Now, we have the Islamic values as the foundation. Sustainable development means meeting the needs of today without harming the future. In the Bangsamoro, we face complex challenges: poverty, environmental degradation, and rebuilding after conflict. Islam teaches us, Khilafah, that humans are caretakers of the earth, and Mizan, or balance, which reminds us to use resources responsibly. The Quran repeatedly calls for justice and compassion, not only toward people, but toward nature. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "The earth is green and beautiful, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has appointed you as a steward over it." The principle pushes us to protect our forests, our waters, and our communities. Education. This is one of the development as a vision of the BARM, is the key to transforming societies. Our schools and universities, especially Mindanao State University, are not just as centers of learning, they are platforms for transformation. When Islamic teachings are combined with modern science, we nurture not only skilled professionals but responsible citizens guided by moral values. The VARM government envisions a self-reliant and peaceful region. Its development agenda rests on moral governance, a concept drawn from Islamic principles of integrity, justice, and service. This ensures that every policy, from education to environment, aligns with ethical values. Green innovation means using technology for the environment's benefit. This includes solar energy, sustainable farming, and green architecture, but also innovations guided by wasatiyah, the Islamic principle of moderation. We innovate not to exploit, but to preserve. Sustainable development becomes real when technology serves people and nature. Let's look at the examples shaping a greener Bangsamoro today. First, the solar electrification projects through the Bar Ministry of Science and Technology. From the remote schools, madrasas, and mosques in Sulu, Basilan, and far as Tawi-Tawi are now powered by solar panels. A masjid that once relied on kerosene lamps can now hold Tarawih prayers at night under bright, clean energy. This is not only a technological upgrade, but a form of ibadah, fulfilling our trust, amanah, as caretakers of Allah's resources. Another example, we have the mangrove rehabilitation and coastal ecotourism. In Parang, Datoodin, Sinsuat, and other coastal towns, local communities are replanting mangroves through partnership with the Ministry of Environment, Natural Resources, and Energy. Mangroves protect our coasts from storms, provide nurseries for fish, and even attract ecotourists. The Prophet ﷺ said, if a Muslim plants a tree or sows seeds, and then a bird or a person or an animal eats from it, it is regarded as charity. Each mangrove tree, therefore, is an act of sadaqah jariyah, a continuing charity. The other one, we have the Zero Waste and Green Campus Movement. At the Mindanao State University, sustainability is not only taught but practiced. The Green Campus Initiative promotes tree planting, plastic reduction, and rainwater harvesting systems. The College of Science has begun research on biodegradable alternatives to plastics, while the King Fahd Center for Islamic, Arabic, and Asian Studies integrates environmental ethics in its programs. The other one, we have the smart and agricultural systems. The farmers are now testing solar-powered irrigation in Maguindanao del Sur, helping reduce dependence on diesel pumps. Others are learning hydroponic, aquaponic farming, producing vegetables without soil, efficient and eco-friendly. This innovation embodied wasatiyah, the balance and moderation that Islam teaches us to apply in all things. Each of these projects reflects how technology can harmonize with our faith and culture, serving both human progress and the protection of creation. Beyond technology, sustainability in the Bangsamoro is also a social and economic rooted in Islamic ethics and community empowerment. For example, the halal and organic agri-fishery innovation hubs. The Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Agrarian Reform has set up innovation hubs that train farmers and fishers in halal, organic, and climate resilient practices. They teach methods that avoid chemical overuse and respect the environment. These hubs also help farmers obtain halal certification, opening markets for ethically produced goods. This aligns, of course, with halalan tayyiban, food that is lawful, wholesome, and sustainable. The other one, we have the Women Lead Waste to Wealth cooperatives. In Marantao and in Balindong and in Cotabato City, groups of women have started turning plastic waste into eco bricks, bags, and home decor items. These cooperatives create economic while cleaning their surroundings. Their motto, clean homes, clean income, echoes Islam's principle of tahara, purity. These women are not just earning, they are leading environmental change in their communities. The other one, we have the Islamic green finance models. One of the most promising ideas is using Islamic finance for sustainability. The BARMS Economic and Development Council, in partnership with the Mindanao State University researchers, is exploring green wakaf, zakah for the environment, and takaful for disaster resilience. Imagine a wakaf-funded solar village or zakah supported mangrove park. These are faith-based innovations with global relevance. The Prophet ﷺ said, encourage productive endowments, and today that could mean renewable energy, reforestation, or clean water systems. And we have also the community-based stewardess programs. Local ulama, youth organizations, and barangay leaders are promoting khilafah or stewardship. Through environmental awareness drives, some municipalities such as Datopiang and Lanao del Sur, Wao have even begun community tree planting days that double as Islamic environmental education. These movements embody the Quranic principle of Islam, reforming society through collective good. Together, these social and financial innovations show that the Bangsamoro's path to sustainability is rooted not in imitation, but in revival, a return to the values of justice, mercy, and balance that define Islam. This is the essence of moral governance in action of the BARM, aligning our economy with our ethics. The next slide, we have the challenges and opportunities. The youth of the Mindanao State University, other universities or colleges are agents of change. Their projects, from eco-breaks to mobile apps promoting environmental awareness, show how faith-inspired education leads to action. When research is linked to policy, innovation turns into impact. Now, of course, we face challenges. Number one is the limited funding and technical expertise. Funding, coordination, and technical skills. But Islamic finance offers opportunities through zakah, wakaf, takaful, and others Islamic finance contract. We can mobilize resources for green development. Imagine a wakaf-funded solar village or a zakah-sponsored environmental scholarship, both ethical and sustainability. The path forward, let's strengthen Islamic education by weaving sustainability into our lectures, into our lessons. When our madaris teach environmental ethics alongside the Quran, we raise eco-conscious Muslims. And through collaboration between education and environmental ministries, we ensure these values reach every household of the community. At the end, our path forward involves partnership. The government, universities, private sector, and religious leaders must work together by institutionalizing Islamic green finance and empowering communities. We transform sustainability from theory into everyday practice. As this verse reminds us, transformation begins with us. Sustainable development guided by Islamic values and strengthened by innovation is our shared responsibility. Let us act as true khulafa, stewards of Allah's creation, for just, green, and peaceful Bangsamoro. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Of Islamic value, presentation on sustainable development in Bangsamoro and Islamic values is green innovation, combines faith, education, and green innovation. Jadi penggabungan kepercayaan, edukasi, dan inovasi hijau juga integrate Islamic education and policy. Professor Dr. Abdul Kadir M. Alio also taught us about the modern environmental solution yang applied di Bangsamoro, Philippines, which includes but not limited to solar project, mangrove rehabilitation, coastal tourism, zero waste, and green campus innovation, which we also have here in Antasari, Banjarmasin, smart water, organic farming, and so many other pathways and forms of programs of green growth. And as Professor Dr. Abdul Kadir concludes, sustainable development is not just an agenda, but also an act of worship. Now we will have our question and answer session from the audience. I have Salu, I think, from our fellow students. You may ask your question.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Abdul Kadir. Firstly, let me introduce myself. I'm a student majoring in Islamic finance at Antasari. So it's insightful to see the practical implementation in Bangsamoro. So, in your opinion, does the moral governance framework and the Islamic finance zakat or wakaf models that you are successfully applying in Bangsamoro briefly replicated in Indonesia and solving the problem here? Thank you.
Salu, yeah, you can give a round of applause. That was the question, Professor. Could it be promoted how to apply?
Okay, it means how can Islamic finance support green innovation, you mean, in the Bangsamoro? The Islamic finance tools like Sukuk, this is the green bonds, the Wakaf charitable bonds, charitable endowments, and Zakah, obligatory charity, can fund eco-friendly projects without interest. For example, a green Wakaf could support sustainable farming or reforestation. Thank you.
Correct, Professor. Thank you so much. We will now have a second question from the audience. You have one from the online chat.
Is it enough? Can I ask to Kadir?
Sure, thank you. Here is we have our fellow lecturer, Professor Antasari. You may write your question.
Okay, my name is Samira Widiani Putri. I'm from Sharia Accounting Study Program. I want to ask to Professor Kadir, can Islamic green finance model such as zakat, wakaf, and tabaqo realistically support large-scale environmental projects, or do they need structural reform to align with the demands of modern sustainability frameworks? Thank you, Mr.
You mean the technology and socio and economic modern solutions? The digital tools like GIS mapping, water quality sensors, and smart agriculture systems can help manage natural resources. The Mindanao State University and BARN ministries can collaborate to build local capacity in these areas.
Yes, that's something about that line about how financial model also support environmental projects or align with sustainability efforts.
Sorry.
Correct. That was the question from our fellow lecturers of Sabila. Would you like to answer the question?
Semoga cepat. Wah, mantap ini. Jaga kalau kena ya.
from Professor Dr. Ayo. If that is all, please give a round of applause for Dr. Abdul Arif Hadir M. Ayu from the Philippines. Thank you so much, Professor, for joining us today, delivering the presentation. It was very engaging, and thank you everyone for the insightful questions. Now we have our...
Okay, terima kasih.
Good. Would you like to make a statement?
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me as one of your lecturer. Thank you very much. Again, thank you and see you soon in personal. So, Klan, I saw one of my friend, Dr. Zaki Zaini is there.
So good to see you, Prof. So good to see you.
Yeah,
We
so
always
thank
make
you
it
very
out.
much. Okay. Try to visit also the Philippines, particularly in Mindanao, the Mindanao State University, so that at least you can have a sightseeing on our many waterfalls, our Sleeping Lady Mountains, the ruins of the Marawi State. So this is a personal invitation to everybody. So thank you very much.
Be in Manila sometime and visit the Baltimore. Next, on last of our agenda today, we have our third guest, Dr. Muhammad Zaki Zaidi. He's a British citizen born in 1986. He had his PhD qualification from the University of Exeter in the United Kingdom in 2016. He obtained his postgrad in MSc Operational Music in 1986 from Cardiff University, United Kingdom, currently serving as an assistant professor in economics, also as dean at the Faculty of Islamic Economics and Finance at the University of Islam Sultan Sharif Ali Unisa, Brunei Darussalam. Appointed as advisory board in International Journal of Islamic Economics and Governance, Minhaj Zulfikar University in Pakistan, also a head group in collaboration with Islamic Development Bank Brunei, appointed by the Ministry of Finance. Please join us from the University of Islam Sultan Sharif Ali Unisa, Brunei Darussalam, Dr. Muhammad Zaki Zaini on his presentation for today, Aligning Education with Green Economy, a Case Study in Brunei. Please give a round of welcome.
Thank you very much. Is my voice very clear out there? Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Can you show my slide, please? Okay, thank you very much. So today I will be presenting on aligning education with green economy, a case study in Brunei. Before I start, I just want to say it's so good to see my friend and my mentor, Professor Abdul Qadir. I personally have visited him in Mindanao, and he has visited to Brunei as well. So I'm looking to see all of our friends from Antasari to come over to Unisa and Mindanao as well, inshallah. So today I will be presenting on how do we align our education system with the green economy. So to the next slide, what is actually a green education? How do we explain to students or even to the public? What is green education? How do we even explain green education to our elderly parents? So basically, what we want to see in terms of green education is that in our education system, we create not just awareness, but the urgency of why we should protect the environment. And most ultimate objective of green education is not just about environment, but about sustainability. Many of us, when we go to school, we are only chasing grades, and no one can deny that. Whatever modules that we take, we simply aim to get a grade A, a first class. But eventually, to what extent have we embedded sustainability in our module, which also includes on green, on the environment? So in green education, the objective is that we see a green awareness from primary level, secondary level, and tertiary level. So this is what us in UNISA is also aim and intend to see, which I will explain later on. The next slide, please. Can we go to the next slide? Okay. The next one is why now? When you see what's going on today, even you scroll in your TikTok account, you see the FYP, you started to actually realize the natural disasters magnitude and the frequency and the severity have been very, very concerning. In fact, I'm sure our friend from Philippines in Manila, we see that floods have become very occurrent. It has become very common as well. Even in Indonesia and in Brunei, we are suffering from this climate change. Now, when we see this natural disaster, we did not realize that natural disaster has caused a lot, not just to the government, but also to the corporate world. In fact, it has so much impact to banks as well. Because imagine that even to takaful industry or insurance industry, imagine what if natural disaster has caused so much impact to infrastructure. To rebuild those infrastructure costs money. And when the community, including those capitalists, started to realize natural disaster has cost us something. Even any normal person who only aims to chase profit, they started to realize natural disaster could be considered as a potential risk. Even if you're only chasing for money, you realize that natural disaster is not something that we should not pay attention to. Hence, why we started to see green curriculum has become the main thing right now. Because not only it has the concern of the government, including those in the business world started to realize we need to do something about it. Okay? In fact, back then, I'm actually millennial. I'm not sure if Professor Abdul Qadir is the Gen Z, and I'm sure majority of our students from Economy Sharia on the screen there, they are actually the Gen Zs. Huh? So myself, the millennial, I've never heard of the term green education during my years in university, secondary years, let alone in primary education. So nowadays, you guys, the Gen Z, the Gen Alpha, you guys are very lucky because you are being exposed to what is green education. You are being exposed to why environment is very important. And the reason why is that because your generation started to see the occurrence of natural disasters have become out of control. And hence, your generation are the one who are actually suffering more than what we used to. Can we go to the next slide? Now, coupled with natural disaster, there are some major economic issues have even strengthened or signify why green education is important. Now, let's just pick something that is very common nowadays. On tariff. So, on the tariff itself, trade barriers, trade tension have become a major discussion among economists and among the policymakers nowadays. You see, before 1930s, everybody are working on their own. Semua hanya produce sendiri-sendiri saja. So after 1930s, and then after the World War II, US started to realize the importance of working together. Kita perlu trade. We have to work together. Hence, trade barriers have been lifted. We all have to work together. It's about the unity. Now, because of this common belief in trade unity, everybody gets the competitive advantage benefits. Maksudnya Indonesia boleh export, boleh import. Kita boleh bekerjasama dengan negara-negara barat, dengan China dan sebagainya. However, very recently, we see that trade barriers have been imposed. Yang mana sebelumnya kita bekerjasama, but now we going back to before 1930s, where we wanted to work on our own. We seek food security. We want to produce what's good for us only. And this benarnya, and this has actually even caused more tension on our environment. Imagine that if I could actually get agriculture supply from Malaysia without compromising my own environment, then that's better. But because of trade barriers, we started to be so scared of working together. So trade tension really could cause more severity on the natural disaster. Hence, not just natural disaster has become an issue. In fact, what's going on around us right now, such as threat tension, has become one of the variables that could influence or increase the magnitude of natural disaster or the consequences of natural disaster. So we have to be very careful of this. Like, how does Indonesia, Brunei, Singapore, Malaysia, the ASEAN countries deal with this? What if we have to take sides? China or the US? Russia or Ukraine? So all this geopolitics that create threat tension actually signifies the importance of why green education is important. That we do not only see money and cents or dollar and cents. It's beyond that. Okay? So can we go to the next slide? Now, in fact, the human activities that what we do today contributes a lot to natural disaster. How many of us, our parents, our cousins, who are active in agriculture, have ever really concerned about sustainable agriculture? Majority of us who doing business, who produce things, the only issue that you always be concerned of is dollar and cents. How much money can I make? Where can I save? What source should I use? Those questions, very minimal you would consider whether this is sustainable. Majority of us, especially in the ASEAN part, our major concern is profit-wise. That's it. Whether our agricultural practice is sustainable or otherwise, it doesn't matter. Whether how we use the water will affect the future generation, it doesn't matter. Whether we actually use of the land without having a proper planning for the future generation, it doesn't matter. In fact, I attended one conference in one of ASEAN countries. We talk about sustainability. Okay? In the conference, we talk about sustainability. The moment when I step out of the hall, there is a deforestation. Why? They want to build a new buildings. So there's so much conflicts between like what we practice and what we preach. We talk about sustainability. The moment I step out of the buildings, out of the hall, they are deforest for a new building. So where's sustainability in there? So these are the things that we have to ask ourselves. Whether we really contribute to a better environment. Whether we are doing things that promote and preserve our environment. So us, the human activities are actually contributing to the natural disaster. Okay? So we go to the next slide, please? Now, from the global perspective, we all know about the SDG 2030. I think everybody, in fact, students from Antasari are very aware of the SDG 17. Okay? And it's become compulsory for us to at least know how many goals are there and what are the sentiments of all these 17 goals. So this global perspective of sustainability has become very important, and we are only like 5 years away from SDG 2030. And where we are, if you students, all your students need, if you can go to our dashboard, you will realize that even Brunei, our ranking is 90 plus out of 140 plus countries. Indonesia even do much better than us in terms of ranking, in terms of SDG. But yet we are still far off from where we're supposed to be. Okay? So actually, can we go to the next slide on the global perspective, please? Now, if you go on this, you started to realize the main point that I want to focus is on the human capital and technology. This is where education is very important. Now, to achieve SDG, as mentioned by the previous presenters, we need the political will as well, the leadership and political commitment. Okay, we need the security and political stability. And this is what ASEAN has been doing. And in fact, Prof. Kadir mentioned about the role of Islamic finance, which actually emphasized on the financial resources from the picture you see here. But yet again, if you see human capital and technology is centered in these building blocks, it shows that how important education is in achieving our SDG 2030. Okay, so can we go to the next slide? Can we go to the next slide, please? Now, on the ASEAN role, Now, if we, like my friend here, Prof. Abdul Kader from Philippines, you guys inviting me from Indonesia, myself from Brunei, we are actually from ASEAN family. We are actually a very strong family. We believe in unity. I think in ASEAN, we believe in the concept of friends with all, enemy with none. So this particular concept also signifies that we are being friendly to environment and we are committed to it. Okay. In fact, there are so many commitment towards sustainable development and environmental cooperation. In fact, ASEAN have produced a particular guidelines on education action plan for 2014 to 2018, and we actually embed this in our master plan for green education. Next slide, please. Now, in terms of, can you go to the next slide? Now, in terms of our role towards green initiative, we have our own targets. Where we are, what do we want to achieve by 2030? So we even propose a KPI and aims, a target, 30% by 2030 on renewable energy. Now, this is what we intend to see. In fact, sustainable urban development, we talk about the collaboration. So ASEAN is there so that we can actually work on this together. On green initiative, on sustainability, it's not just a story about Philippines, about Indonesia, about Malaysia, or about Brunei. It's actually not just a global cooperation. In fact, within us, within the region, we are very concerned about sustainability. Now, can we go to the next slide? Now, this is where I just want to share a bit of where we are in terms of green education, especially for Brunei. Now, in Brunei, we have, can we go to the slide? Okay. Now, in Brunei, we are looking at greening education plan. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay. So this is where we are at the moment. The greening education plan. It has been published very recently, I think just a few months ago. This is actually an initiative between all education sectors in Brunei. So the committee is coming from university, from primary schools, from the ministry, from secondary school. So they all are being part of this greening education plan. So in this particular plan, they want to see how we can embed green curriculum into all sectors of education, from primary up to tertiary. How do we do that? They're benchmarking it from global perspective, from regional perspective, and in fact on the national perspective as well. So this is what they intend to do. And they have a very clear master plan on how all stakeholders can achieve this together. So this greening education plan has been published by Ministry of Education Brunei. Now, can we go to the next slide, please? So in this greening education plan, the vision is education for a greener tomorrow. And there are two focus areas, and this is very important, education and operations. So the strategies are, they focus on curriculum, on the career, on the infrastructure, research, and the eco-friendly practices. So they also have their enablers, which is capacity building, monitoring, stakeholder engagement, technology integration, and governance and finance. Now, I just want to talk a bit on the sustainability operation. What really triggered me was the thing has been mentioned by Professor Dr. Ridwan earlier and Professor Abdul Kadir. Like from Professor Dr. Ridwan, he mentioned on how do we balance between what we preach and what we practice. Now, we always talk about green and green. But to what extent do we operate our infrastructure or our institution sustainably? Do we really track our carbon emission? Do we really embed among students their impact to the environment? How many students use cars, vehicles to the university? In fact, in Indonesia, how many students menggunakan motor pergi ke campus? If we tend to consolidate all of this, how many emissions have been produced just to go to university on daily basis? So sustainability operation is a major concern. We talk about green, but do we operate sustainability? So this is something that for me, at personal level is very concerning. In fact, no disrespect to, like, if this is my personal observation, if we have a big event bringing a lot of participants, how many how many carbon emissions have been produced for that particular event? Have them? How and event. So how actually really look into education bit, which is easy, but the operation bit is for me something that always create conflicts. This is something that we really have to be concerned, and that is why if you look at our strategy, we're looking at the green infrastructure, which very important, and also on the governance and finance. So we want to look at to what extent do we really practice what we preach. So what we say in the layman terms, walk the talk. Okay? So next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, the sustainability education and sustainability and sustainable operations are the very major concern. In fact, one of the biggest universities in Brunei, they have occupied a huge piece of land just to operate the university. Sangat besar universitinya. So this particular operation, are they very friendly to the environment? Although if your ranking is so much high up there, but are you being friendly to the environment? This is another question. You might embed so many things about sustainability in your modules, but operation-wise, are you being friendly to the environment? Not just environment, but also to the society. To what extent do you really support sustainability? So these two focus area, not just a simple focus area, but something that we really have to be concerned of. Next, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of achieving our green education at national level, there are some enablers. If you look at the eco-friendly practices there, water reduction, water conservation, sustainable procurement, energy reduction, sustainable food system, that is under eco-friendly. For the green research and innovation, we are focusing more on the research impact and as well as focusing on areas which really contributes to sustainability. The green infrastructure is that we're not just creating a new building, but we're creating a building that really friendly to the environment. And we are also looking at how do we create, how do we actually contribute to creating a skillful individuals in the area of green, not just green, but also in the sustainability area. Okay, so the enablers has been mentioned, the capacity building, which is you guys, the students, the governance and finance, technology integration, stakeholder engagement, and monitoring and evaluation. I personally see that what we do today is actually a stakeholder engagement and collaboration. This is where we actually change our ideas. What is the practice of MSU, Mindanao State University? What is the practice of Antasari? What is the practice of universities in maybe in Malaysia? So how can we actually learn from each other? All right. So next slide. Now, this is where we are at the moment, UNISA, my university. Now, we have not published our master plan yet. It will be published, and I'm part of the committee. So we do not deviate much from our national master plan. We still look in terms of our curriculum, our research, the governance, the pathway, the career pathway, and also to what extent do we contribute to the community. So these are the 5 pillars where UNISA are looking at in terms of green education. Now, in fact, I just want to share a bit. Can we go to the next slide? I think I have a further information on this. Can you go to the next slide, please? Now, if you go to the next slide, we are trying to integrate SDG and sustainability themes into all of our modules. At least 100% of our students understand sustainability and Maqasid Sharia. So what we intend to see is that the moment our students have graduated from our university, they understand about sustainability and Maqasidul Sharia. So what we will do is we will embed those themes in our university required course. Now, research and innovation, this is where we focus on impact and partnership, matching grants, collaborative grant with MSU maybe one day. We can do a research grant with Antasari as well, looking into green. Maybe our students from Antasari and UNISA can work together on a project, on a green project. So these are the areas where we're actually supposed to work together. Like community engagement, the main issue that we want to look at is how do we create projects that helps the community. Not just about green, but creating employment sustainably. Creating a project that tackle poverty by taking into account the sustainable practice. Okay, the governance look into the policies and operation, and finally career, we're looking at the sustainability career, not just green, but sustainability career as well. Now, finally, on my slide, final slide, can we go to the last slide? Now, this is something that I always ask myself as well. We always talk about sustainable practice, we talk about sustainable development goals, we talk about green economy, but do we practice what we preach? To what extent do we really contribute to this? For instance, like myself, when I go to office, I always bring this. You can't see this, huh? I always bring my own bottle. Okay? I don't use plastic bottles anymore. So, in fact, when you can walk, you should walk. So when you can actually save the environment by sacrificing a bit of your profit, you should. But do we really practice what we preach? So this is something very important. To what extent that when we take shower, that we really concerned about our water usage? Not really. No one really cares actually. So those water mismanagement is also a very major concern. Now, similarly, on the institution vision and mission, we always sometimes, I'm not saying all, we always chase the ranking, but sometimes chasing those ranking are in the expense of sustainable practice. Just because of ranking, we are sacrificing the practice of protecting the environment. And you know, this actually happens in most institutions. So how do you balance between in saving the environment or making sure that you achieve your KPI? And finally, what is our goals actually? Are we doing this because of other issue, or are we doing this for our younger generation? And are we doing this really because of UN has been forcing us to do it? Or is it because of it's trending right now? Everybody talk about green, let's do green. If one day people talk about purple, let's do purple. If one day people talk about pink, let's do pink. Is it because of just a trendy word? Or are we really doing it back to save our environment or for our future generation? I think that's all from me. Thank you very much. I'm open to any questions. Thank you.
Both Abdul and also Dr. Muhammad Fakhi have gone a long way back and are able to be here with us today to give valuable insight on green economy and sustainable effort. All right, now we'll move on to question and answer session. If you would like to ask questions, please raise your hand and say your name. I see there is Christina, and Mr. Ahmad Yasik from the Heavy Building. You may ask the question. I see you're on mute, Mr. Ahmad Yasir. You may open the mic. Thank you. And host, please unmute his mic. You're over.
Hello, hi.
Ya, iya benar. Ayo. Assalamualaikum. Jangan lupa. Oh, enggak, Pak. Oh, pentingnya, Pak. Siap. Yang mana nanti? Lain, Pak. Ah, belum, masih orang.
I can hear.
Ikan deh langsung. Yes, let's go. Coba. Oke. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
My name is Ahmad Asy Abdullah. I come from Istanbul, Banjar Agency. I have a question. In the area where I live, there are mostly ulama who live with the community. What should the role of this ulama be in environmental preservation if it is related to the green economy that is being discussed?
Okay, thank you very much. So what did you actually live in
Istanbul.
Istanbul?
Istanbul.
I thought Istanbul, Turkey.
No, no, no.
Okay, anyway, thank you so much, our friends from Turkey, Istanbul. Now your question is more on like what's the role of ulama and green, right? Now this is why we actually embed in our master plan. The career pathway does not only talk about green, like on the engineering bit. In fact, our program we have faculty of Usuluddin, we have faculty of Sharia as well. So how do these graduates from Usuluddin and Sharia to green? Okay, so what they can actually do is that they can contribute in terms of preach, in terms of policy, anything that can actually promote the green and sustainability. Okay, so in fact, majority of our committee, we always embed Islamic scholars. We always actually include Islamic scholars in creating the policy. So we always look at how does this particular master plan complies with Maqasidul Sharia. So this is where your question fits. We don't only simply look at how does it actually fit to SDG, but how do all this policy that we propose fits to a bigger picture of Maqasid Sharia. So that's why the ulama plays a very important role, because they can actually link to hadith, they can actually link to the surah in the Quran, because whatever you see in the hadith, it has been actually something that could be predicted in the future. Now, whatever you see today actually being predicted in the hadith and in the Quran. So I hope that it answers your question. Okay?
You may open the mic. Yes, anyone can conclude that very clear. Thank you so much, Dr. Mohammed. Now we have another question from the audience, Ms. Dina.
Thank you for opportunity for me to ask. Let me introduce. My name is Dina Maulida from Economy Sharia Major. I've seen three relevant presentations. First, speaker showed an urgent justice of economy. Second, speaker showed practical solution via moral performance and Islamic finance in bangsa model. And you propose green education as a long-term solution. My question, which is more action, can green education truly success if the legal and financial system are not fixed first?
If anyone can actually repeat the question for me, why green? How does green education work?
Which is more accurate? Can green education truly succeed if the legal and financial systems are not fixed first?
So which one should we prioritize? Is it like green education or the finance bit? Is that what you meant?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for the interesting question. Now, that's actually a very interesting question. How do we prioritize between the education, the awareness bit, and the finance? Now, there is no way we can actually have a clear-cut answer on that. That's why when you look at how Professor Ridwan and Professor Abdul Qadir have mentioned, eventually it goes back to a certain context. Now, there are certain ways of where you cannot move without finance. But there are certain way where you can actually move even without finance. So this is where the policy makers and their stakeholders have to sit together to decide which one takes priority. In fact, if you implement those questions to Maqasid al-Sharia, decide whether I should go for option A or option B. Which comes first in terms of Maqasid Sharia. Now, your question earlier is that which one is supposed to be fixed first, education or the finance bit? You cannot actually separate these two entirely. There always be an instances where it can work separately, but there are certain times that it has to work together. For instance, like our conference today, how can we have a conference without any budget, without any support financially? It's almost impossible. So, however, there are certain ways if you want to go for a smaller scale, like awareness program at a smaller scale, you don't need finance. You can do it in a small classroom, and you can still do it even without having support financially from your university. So it depends on certain contexts. If your intention is to reach a greater audience, a bigger audience, beyond your territory, sometimes financial support is compulsory. But if you want to go and take a step back, take a smaller target, smaller impact, sometimes finance can be taken out of the equation. So there's no clear-cut answer. It depends on the situation. If your target is huge, is up there, sometimes finance is compulsory. But if you're willing to take a step back, smaller impact, without the inclusion of finance, you still can achieve what you intend to achieve. So again, it depends on the situation. But yet, you cannot say finance is not important, education is more important, or finance is more important, education is not. There is no clear-cut answer on that. They all have to work together, hand in hand. Financial support as well as education. That's why the building blocks that you see earlier, they all stack together because they have to support each other. Okay, I hope that answers your question. Thank you so much for your question.
First, on the finance. So the last question is what our must include Islamic scholars in place as in place of Islamic is very important role, and also prioritize green education, legal and finance aspects when there's no quick step that has to work together. But there is ways as explained by Muhammad Bakr. Would you like to have a closing statement? Dr. Muhammad before we our discussion?
Okay, thank you very much. And again, once again, thank you so much to the organizer for having me here this morning. And it's such a pleasure to see my mentor and my friend, Professor Abdul Kadir, sharing the same floor like myself. So I feel very honored to be able to speak in the same floor with Professor Abdul Kadir. Thank you so much to Antasari for bringing me here today. Although I couldn't see you guys in person, as what mentioned by Professor Abdul Kadir, so it would be good if you can see the students in person. So hopefully you guys can come over to Brunei before you. Then after that we can go to Mindanao from Brunei. So we have like a tour to Brunei, to Mindanao, and then go back to Indonesia again. So hopefully Antasari can create those tours for us, inshallah. And above all, hopefully we can really work together to achieve sustainability in whatever we do. Thank you so much.
So to summarize, hopefully next week also see a green education plan 2025-2035 like Monday. And thank you so much for sharing with us the particulars and enablers, and hopefully next week also publish next plan. We have now come to the end of our session, but before we end, let's Thank you, and thank you to all participants in the room, offline, and in classrooms and online. Big thank you to you all. We would also like to thank the staff and event organizers who have given us support and run our program here in the Faculty of Economics and Business Islam Banjarmasin. As we close, I'll leave you with a thought inspired by today's theme. The future of development belongs to those who innovate sustainably and build resilience with purpose. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala let us all continue reimagining progress cleaner, wiser, and more inclusive. My name is Sophie, and it's my honor and privilege to be your moderator for this session. Thank you all for your presence. Thank you very much. You may now enter. We have see you in your next conference. Wabillahi hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So, Professor Dr. Hamasaki and Dr. Ridwan, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you also online participants. Thank you, Inan.
يا حبيبي إليك فاض قلبي عشقا بالصلاة عليك طارت روحي حبا في المنام إليك رام كل قربا سيدي لبيك قلبي في المدينة وجد السكينة قال يا نبينا السلام عليك قلبي في المدينة وجد السكينة محمد نبينا السلام عليك صلوات الله وسلامه عليك يا رسول الله صلوات الله وسلامه عليك يا حبيب الله